This is the Sons of UCF podcast, your place for UCF sports talk year-round. Now, here is Adam and Mike.
All right, hey, what's up, Knight fans? This is Adam from the Sons of UCF, welcoming you to another special edition of the Sons of UCF. This is the SONday Knight Conversations series, which, if you're not familiar with the proceedings here, we have a bunch of different interviews that we want to share with you guys. So here's a quick backstory. Did 97 some odd shows that featured just a bunch of great interviews with former Knights players, coaches, staffers. And unfortunately, those got removed from the internet when we went on a solo route here. So we've been trying to find ways to get those conversations back into your eardrums because we think they're really great. And if you're a true Knight fan, we know that you'll love them. Plus, we know some of you have maybe just discovered Mike and I recently. And so we want to make sure we bring those conversations back to you so you have the chance to enjoy them as well. So we have two conversations that we're going to replay for you this evening. And both of them involve quarterbacks. And what's interesting about UCF, if you think about it, is we've had a really good run of quarterbacks. We've had some names of some guys that have set record setters, from Culpepper to Schneider to Bortles to Godfrey to Milton. But in between there, we've actually had a couple seasons where some guys have really had to come in and bridge the gap and sort of fill in sort of the holes and be the guy to replace the guy. And so we've got two quarterbacks tonight to talk to. First, Vic Penn. Vic was the heir apparent to Dante Culpepper, who back in that late 90s era was larger than life. He was the best thing ever happened to UCF. He graduates, and Vic Penn steps in as the starting quarterback in 1999 and faces a murderer's row schedule. And then he carries it into 2000, where he gets injured, and all of a sudden makes way for Ryan Schneider, who comes on the scene and has some record-setting years at UCF. So first up, we chat with Vic Penn about his experience at UCF and the pressures of being the guy to follow the guy. Then we have another quarterback who was only on the scene for about a year, but one of the more important years in UCF history. We all remember that 2010 season where Jeff Godfrey came in and took over and was kind of electric. But many people forget that 2009 season was a springboard onto some bigger and better things. We had a bunch of players from that era on, and they've shared a lot of stories. Most recently, we had Brian Waters on, and he talked about our next our interview, I guess, on this particular show, is Brett Hodges. And Brett was a transfer quarterback from Wake Forest, came in and sort of stabilized that 2009 season when UCF had been going through a bunch of quarterbacks. So Brett has a really unique experience, only one season playing at UCF, and we think you'll enjoy his memories of his 1 year and what that meant to him. So we think these are two really good conversations, and we are happy to bring them to you. One other note, as you're listening to this, whenever you're listening to this, don't forget that we also do a live show Thursday nights typically. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Just search Sons UCF. We are live with Trace Trelko on board as well. And we just go through news and notes, topics, interviews, all that stuff. So as you're hearing this particular show this week, if you're listening in real time, you will see a Sons UCF live this week as well, and a couple of other fun things planned. So make sure that you're subscribing to all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all at Sons of UCF. Make sure you're following our website, twoknightsmedia.com. All of our information is there. All of our content is there. Shows, both live and pods, they're all there as well. So that's a one-stop shop for all things Sons of UCF. Now, all you got to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy, again, SONday Knight Conversations. First up is Vic Penn about his time at UCF. So I'm going to shut up, and you can start listening.
This is UCF head football coach Gus Malzahn, and you're listening to the Future of UCF podcasting with Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Boom.
All right, so we're pleased to welcome our next guest to the program. So 2 years at UCF at the quarterback position. He threw for over 3,800 yards and 21 touchdowns, and is none other than Vic Penn. Vic, welcome to the Sons of UCF podcast, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here, and I appreciate you thinking of me.
Yeah, so you again, we were saying in the pre-call here, you overlapped with our tenure at UCF, so we certainly remember your days at UCF well. But not a lot of the younger fans may know a lot about your time at the program, so we're excited to kind of get into your career. And I guess the first place we'll start is you didn't start off at UCF, right? So you attended South Carolina out of high school, but you played like 8 games your freshman year for South Carolina, but ultimately you decided to transfer out of the Gamecock program. What led to that decision? What led you to leave South Carolina?
Well, I in '97, out of high school, I went to the University of South Carolina, and I redshirted my first year, and then my second year I was playing. I was the backup to Anthony Wright, who ended up having a very nice college and NFL career as a quarterback. And against Tennessee, Peyton Manning's final home game in Neyland Stadium, Anthony blew out his knee in the first quarter of that game. It was 110,000 people at that time. It was a record crowd because it was Peyton's final home game. And I went in, he blew out his knee, and I went in and I played the final, 3 or 4 games, and actually was honored All SEC Freshman Quarterback of the Year of 1997. And at the conclusion of that season, our offensive coordinator, who recently passed away, John Reeves, was let go from South Carolina. And he was, under Spurrier for many, many years. He's a former Florida Gator quarterback, and he likes to throw the ball. And that's what I'd like to do. So when he left and they brought in, a different type of system, they wanted me to run the option and do all these other types of things. And I was just, I'm a drop back passer. And I ended up leaving as well once he was let go. So I did 1 year in Garden City, Kansas Junior College after that. And then I ended up playing my final 2 years out at UCF. Yeah.
So talk to us about that. How did you end up at UCF? I know you came out of Miami High. So obviously
Right.
You're probably familiar with UCF, but how'd you end up at UCF? Who called you, and how'd you get connected up to Orlando?
Well, like I said, I went a year to Garden City, Kansas, and Coach Scott Fountain called me from UCF, and he was an offensive line coach, / recruiter at the time for UCF. And being out in Kansas for a year, being from Miami and being out in Kansas for a year at that young of an age, I just wanted to come back home, basically. And when UCF called, Dante Culpepper was the quarterback. He had been playing there for 4 years. They didn't have anybody behind him to come up and step in. So they called me up, and they offered me a scholarship, and they had a tremendous schedule. I think it was Purdue, Florida, Georgia Tech, Georgia, Auburn that 99 year. So I knew I was going to play some pretty big games. And when they called me, and it just felt like the right thing to do. And I came back to Orlando, came back home, and the rest is history.
Hey, Vic, being on that 97 South Carolina team, you guys actually played against UCF and only beat us 33-31. Did
That's
any of
right.
Did that game, did that
I
have
would-
any effect on you coming to UCF?
I didn't play quarterback in that game. I was the backup. Anthony was the starter. He played the whole game. But I was the holder for the extra points. And I think we got a couple field goals in there, but that was a great game. And we pulled it out. South Carolina pulled it out. But Dante was the quarterback there, and he did a phenomenal job. And they were tough. I mean, UCF always had a respectable team, and you just couldn't. As you all know, we were always this close from beating that big game until we beat Alabama. But that South Carolina game, I was the holder for the field goals and the extra points, and we were able to pull that one out.
All right, so in 99, after Dante leaves, nobody really knows what to expect after that, all right?
Right.
You come in and you win the starting job in spring over Kelvin Robinson, and I
Right.
think Brian Miller was there too. What do you remember about that battle? And did Coach Cruz kind of just promise you the job coming in, or no?
No, not at all. I mean, I wasn't there for spring because I didn't get to UCF until the fall. So I was right. I mean, I got there right before the start of training camp, and it was not promised to me. No, Brian Miller came in at the same time. Brian was a freshman, tremendous athlete. Kelvin was already there. Kelvin played in in the spring practice. But no, it was not promised to me. But I'll tell you what, Coach Kruzak, having played with and being coached by some tremendous coaches in my time, Kruzak, and he taught me more about quarterback than I've ever known. I mean, if I'd have known the things that I knew from Kruzak when I was at South Carolina, I'd have been that much better, because he took it to another level. He really did. I mean, I didn't have the you hear a lot about quarterbacks having the okay to audible. Kruzak made it where you came up to the line of scrimmage, and if you saw this defense, you better audible. You better change it. If he calls this play and they come out in a defense that's going to stop that play, you better get out of it before the play starts. You better call one of these 3 or 4 plays. So we were really, as an offense, at a different level back then, because we were required to change the play based on what we saw that the defense was giving us. And he had little keys with the number 44. Now, every time number 44 is at that hash mark, they look like they're in cover 2, but they're going to drop into cover 3. Now, every time 44 is over here 2 more yards, they stay in the cover 2 or they stay in the cover 3. So he had little keys, little things like that. When you came up to the line of scrimmage that you had to look for, and you would know what defense they were going to be in based on one guy, and you better change that play at the line of scrimmage and get our offense into the right place. So he was tremendous quarterback coach. He really was.
Well, replacing Dante, I mean, Dante was basically a legend at UCF.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel a lot of pressure replacing him, or like all these?
Not really.
You have to think about it that much.
I mean, the media made a big deal out of it, because first of all, Dante was like 6'4", 260, and I was 6'1", 175. So it was a big difference, right? But I never felt any pressure having to replace Dante. I think the media made it more of a bigger deal than it really was. I was really well accepted by my teammates and coaches, and I never really felt like I had to, prove anything or be like Dante or anything of that nature. I think they nicknamed me Vic Penn Pepper. So they called me Vic K a lot, but no, Dante obviously is a tremendous quarterback, and got a lot of respect for him. But no, I never felt the pressure. I just wanted to go out there and play my own brand of football.
Well, let's talk about Coach Cruz for a second. So you mentioned him a little bit, but it seems common now. But back in '99, the offense UCF was running was actually pretty innovative, right? It was kind of a heavy passing attack, and most programs at that point were doing the option like you talked about, or it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust, or student body left, student body right. But Cruz was kind of opened it up, and sort of that, kind of the air raid-ish offense we see today. What do you remember about playing in that offense, and how exciting was that for you as a quarterback and as a player to be able to be a part of a scheme like that?
It was phenomenal, because I came from the University of South Carolina, as I mentioned, and John Reeves was my quarterback coach. And John Reeves played under Spurrier, and was one of the Florida Gators' all-time greatest quarterbacks. And they were run and shoot, and Spurrier, as you know, is run and shoot. And the system that we ran at South Carolina was identical to the Florida Gators system, which is obviously run and shoot and throw the ball. But when I got to UCF, Coach Kruzak, who he was a Pittsburgh Steeler, he was NFL for a long time, as Super Bowl champion under Terry Bradshaw. Behind Terry Bradshaw, came in one year. I think he won 6 straight games in a row. He took it to another level. I mean, we were running a serious NFL offense, because not only with the schemes, but as I mentioned, but the ability to recognize a defense, read a defense pre-snap, and say, listen, like I said, he always had indicators. Look at this one guy. When this one guy gives it away every time. When he's here, they run this. When he's there, they run that. So we were able to come out and, first of all, he was very, very, very creative in the schemes that he ran. The routes, we didn't run the ball much. I think I set the UCF attempt record in the same year. I think I threw 455 times in that year. So we threw the ball quite a bit. But he made it where you had to know the defense prior to the snap of the ball, and what they ended up in, you already knew based off one guy's key. One guy would give it away. So Kruzak took it to another level. He really did.
Well, scheduling has been a big topic of conversation for UCF lately. But you mentioned it earlier. That 99 season, we started off against 4 ranked opponents. First one was Purdue at home, and Drew Brees came to town, right?
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't lost a home game in over 2 years at that point. What do you remember about that game? And I mean, they beat us up pretty good, though, huh?
Yeah. Well, we came out. I threw a touchdown pass to Kenny Clark on the first drive, and I think the extra point was snapped over my head, and so we went up 6-0. Touchdown pass to Kenny. We came out on the first drive, and we scored a lot on the first drive because Kruzak was able to scheme a first drive better than anybody I've ever been around. Because he just knew what they were going to do on that first drive. And then we came out, we threw the touchdown pass, and Drew Brees came out and did his thing, and he ended up becoming, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But the thing that I remember mostly about that game is, and I think this is the only time this has ever happened in the history of football, and I'm being dead serious because I haven't seen it since, and I hadn't seen it prior. We blocked. Purdue went to kick a field goal, all right, and we blocked their field goal. And when the ball was blocked by UCF, by us, it bounced right back to the holder. The holder picks it up and throws a touchdown pass to a tight end that's just running down the field. Okay, so picture it. A blocked field goal, boom, it's blocked. It goes right back to the holder. The holder picks it up and throws a touchdown pass. I've never seen it happen. But that's the type of thing that would doom us, from time to time. But they ended up beating us, Purdue. And the thing that sticks out in my mind in that game is that we blocked the field goal. The holder picks it up and throws a touchdown pass. That just doesn't happen.
When something like that happens, it's not your day. It doesn't matter. And you're right about scoring first, because the very next week we went to Gainesville and we scored first on them too. On the game,
we did.
We were up 7-0 in that game.
We did. He was very good at scheming first drives because he would say, "This is what they're going to be in. This is what they do every first drive." So he had a game plan on that first drive. And most of the time we would score on that first drive because we knew exactly what they were going to be in. We called the plays that would beat those defenses, and we were able to score on first drives pretty well. So when we came into Gainesville in Florida, I think we went up 7-0 there also.
Yeah, and you actually had a pretty big game. You threw for, I think, over 375 and had 3 touchdowns.
Yep. Yep.
You're feeling pretty comfortable now in the offense now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's plus when you're in the swamp playing and that crowd is so loud, and it's like, I mean, it puts you, it's almost like you're on like some kind of drug because your adrenaline is, I was like a machine. If the crowd would just be quiet, I probably wouldn't have played as well, but they were so loud and it was so intense that my body just, it was the best football game I've ever played in my entire life. And I give that to the Florida Gator crowd. I appreciate their help.
All right. So the next,
the adrenaline just goes to another level, and you just, I couldn't be stopped. I think I threw 35 completions or something of that nature and 300-something yards. So I gave it up to the crowd.
All right, so the next week we lose to Georgia Tech, and so we're 0-3, and we head up to Athens, Georgia, for a matchup against the then 11th ranked Georgia Bulldogs. So I think you know where this one's going. A lot of questions we had to ask here, right? So let me just start here. From the beginning of that game, the energy just felt different, and you guys went into halftime tied at 17. Was there anything specific in the game plan that gave you guys more confidence that week, or do you think playing some of the other ranked opponents leading up to that really kind of made a factor, especially as you guys went at the halftime with the tie game?
I think we were all ticked off that we were 0-3 at that point. And in that week of practice, we were going to do anything we could to win this game. because we were not going to go 0-4. And we had a great week of practice, and again, we lost. You know what happened at the end there, but we almost beat them. We almost won, and it was just, I don't think there was anything different. It was just, we're going to go in here and we're going to beat this team because we had worked hard, all camp, and we knew we had I think it was our first 4 games were the toughest in the United States, in the nation. I think it was the first 4 games of the toughest schedule, Purdue, Florida, Georgia Tech, then Georgia. And we just weren't going to lose that game. We weren't.
Well, so
all week long.
Yeah, so not to cut you off. So that's halftime, right? So then you head into the third quarter. Right. You lead an 89-yard TD drive. You threw a pass to Paige Sessoms, who was your fullback at the time. And then Borlegi misses the extra point, right? So this is third quarter, right? So still plenty of time to play. At that point, did you think that was a big deal? I mean, did you have any feeling that would come back?
The extra point miss, I think, was mid fourth quarter. I don't think it was third. It was mid fourth. And it should have tied to 24-24, but It ended up being 24-23. And we got the ball back, with about a minute to go. So to answer your question, no, because we were going to win it anyway. So the extra point wasn't an issue at that point in my mind. I was the holder for that extra point, and I think it hit the upright and bounced right off the upright. But no, I didn't think it was a factor. Obviously, looking back on it now, I wish we would have made it because it would have maybe put it into an overtime type situation. I don't even know if we had overtime back then, but we did have overtime then. So.
Well, so you weren't done. Like you said, there was a minute 41 left on the clock, and you got the ball back. So we're down 1. You bring the Knights down 61 yards. You find yourself on the Georgia 20-yard line, 25 seconds to go. Now, obviously, there had been some challenges with the kicking game. You referenced the miss there. So obviously at that point, we could have lined up. It would have been a 37-yarder for Borlegi. But Kruzek decides to run one more play. What were your thoughts on that decision? Do you remember that? Do you remember that call and what that decision was?
I remember exactly what happened. We called timeout. I think I scrambled and I ran down to the 19-yard line and I slid, and then we called timeout and we went over to the huddle. And what we should have done is just maybe run a couple of running plays, maybe get 5 or 6 yards closer, kick the field goal, and go home to win. But we decided to throw a fade route to Kenny Clark in the back of the end zone. It was going to be something safe. We're going to take a shot. Maybe we get it. If we don't, it's going to be incomplete. No interceptions. And I threw the pass, and the ball went out of bounds. So Kenny and the defensive back for Georgia went up for the pass for the ball, but they were already on the sideline. They were already out of bounds. So the infraction that took place, they called offensive pass interference on Kenny, which is ridiculous. And it's homegrown, Georgia referees, those SEC referees. They collided a little bit, but it was out of bounds. The ball was out of bounds. It should have been a no call, and we should have came back and kicked the field goal. But what happened is they called offensive pass interference on us. They backed us up 15 yards. On the next play, which nobody remembers, I hit to Tavarius Davis 15 yards back to the 19-yard line on an out route. They called us for lining up wrong. Okay, so it was illegal, not illegal move. It was we didn't have enough men on the line of scrimmage. Okay, which a lot of people don't talk about that one, because I hit Tavarius Davis right back down to the 19 after we lost 15 yards on the previous pass interference. So they called 2 penalties on us back to back, and they backed us up 30 yards. Both of them are 25 yards. One was a 15-yard penalty, one was a 10-yard penalty. And then that just put us out of range. And then I think we had one chance at a Hail Mary at the end, but we had it was a bad snap. Something happened, and I got hit as I threw the ball up, and I just went straight up in the air. So that pass interference really took the wind out of everybody, and then coming back and throwing that pass to bring us back down to the 19, and then being called again for a second penalty. There were 2 penalties in that game, and just at that point we were at a field goal range, and we had no chance but just try to throw it up for at the end of the game there. So we ended up losing 24-23, but that would have been a great victory for us, and I'm confident that Javier Berlegui would have made that field goal had we just maybe run a couple plays, not thrown the fade to Kenny, run a couple plays and have Javier kick the field goal and win the game, which he did against Alabama the next year.
Yeah, he sure did. Right, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is, we had so many close calls kind of coming up through the ranks in the early D1 years. And the Georgia game here was certainly one of the most egregious. So obviously in the locker room, I can imagine it's probably a pretty tough scene. What did Coach Kruzek say to you guys after that game?
To be honest, I can't remember. But he was very, he was proud of us. I know he was proud of us. We didn't point the blame on anybody. Certainly don't blame Javier or anyone. It was a team effort. It's a team loss. There were a lot of things during that game that could have happened that would have changed the outcome. But it was the referees, in my opinion. It was the referees. So they called 2 bogus penalties on us at the end there. But we played hard. We played tough. We had a tremendous offense. We had a lot of players on that team with a lot of heart, a lot of fight. Most of us were undersized because back then UCF, we were too small in the minds of Florida State and Florida and Miami, so we would end up at UCF. But a lot of heart on that football team, and a lot of great friends, a lot of great memories to this day, and. It's unfortunate that we lost that Georgia game because we really should have won that one.
Yeah, so after that 0-4 start, you guys got on a little roll. We won 3 out of the next 4. And you were mentioning the players that you had on that team. Those receivers, Charles Lee, Kenny Clark, Tyson Hinshaw. How fun was it to throw the ball around to those guys?
It was great. I think Tyson ended up having the following year became UCF's. I don't know if he still is. I'm pretty sure he is, but he had the most receptions of any receiver in UCF history. Tremendous receiver, super smart. Kenny, tremendous receiver, super smart, and Charles, tremendous receiver, super smart. And Charles Lee was kind of a freak of nature. I mean, he had he was 6'2", he could, run a 4.3, he could go up and get it. He was fast, and, all 3 of them combined made my life a lot easier because and Tyson was like having another coach on the field because he was very, very, very smart. He was able to come back to the huddle and tell me what coverages they're running and recommend things and recommend audibles and things of that nature. So having all 3 of them was a lot of fun for me, and it was certainly a great time and a great experience that 99 year.
And later in that year, we went back on the road against Auburn, and another close game. We're winning 10-7. I think 10 minutes to go in the 4th, something like that. And we're driving again, maybe to add on to the lead at the Auburn 24. And we missed on a 3rd down pass, and Borleggi misses another field goal. And then I think they kind of scored a couple touchdowns to end the game. What do you remember about that game?
We dominated that game. And as far as, we didn't score a whole lot of points, but we controlled the ball. We threw the heck out of it. I think we're over 300 yards passing on that one also. And it was close. And all of a sudden at the end, it just fell apart. And they scored 2 touchdowns in the final 2 minutes. And they ended up, beating us. But that was a great game and another great experience. Our offense played very, very well for 95% of that game, and it kind of fell apart at the end there. But again, we controlled the ball. We threw it. We completed a lot of passes, and just just didn't bounce our way. The ball didn't bounce our way.
Yeah, that seemed to be the case in a lot of those games in 97, 98, 99. We were so close. But so I'm watching a game earlier this year, and they put up a stat on the TV. The only UCF quarterback to ever run for 100 yards in a game, and it was you, Vic Penn, 122 yards against Middle Tennessee, which is still the UCF record. So
that's amazing to me because I'm not a runner. Okay. Kruzak saw a hole in their defense, and he called during the week. He said, "I think we can run this quarterback draw." Now I was pretty fast. I wasn't agile, but I was pretty fast. So he called a quarterback draw. I think it was the first quarter, and I went for like 60 yards. All right. I think I made it all the way down to the 5-yard line and got tackled at the 5. So I had a couple other runs here and there, and then he called the quarterback draw again in the third quarter, I believe, and it went for like 50. So it was 2 really big runs that I hit that Kruzak saw a hole in their defense, and it totaled to be 122 yards. And I guess 20 years later, at the time, I was the first and only quarterback to ever have rushed for over 100 yards. Because I think Dante was at like 98. And then I hit 122. And 20 years later, nobody's ever been able to beat 122. There were a couple times where I think Mackenzie Milton got close, and 116, and I think the quarterback that replaced him maybe hit 120 or something really close. So anytime they get close, they like to mention that stat, which I like them to get close. I don't like them to beat it, but I like it when they get close because then I get a little TV time.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you must have had some long runs because you only had 11 carries.
Yeah, right. It was 11 carries. It was the 2 big ones. And I think probably 2 of those 11 carries were probably sacks. But I had an 8-yard run here, a 9-yard run there, plus the 2 big ones. And that's how I got the 122. But to this day, it's still the record, which is fun for me. I mean, if somebody breaks it, it's great. But it's fun for me to, when we're on, with the guys and hanging out and watching games, and somebody starts to get close to 122. But thus far, 20 years, nobody's done it. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, 20 years is a long time for any record, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right, so shifting to the 2000 season, we start off 1-2. We had a close loss to Georgia Tech, and then there start to be a lot of reports in the media about quarterback controversy, and Ryan Schneider was the backup at that point. How much does that kind of stuff impact a player? Did that affect you at all? Were you aware of it? How much does that stuff kind of get back to you guys? When you're living in the moment like that.
To be honest, it didn't really impact me at all. I wasn't playing as well as I played the previous year in the first 2 or 3 games of 2000. Ryan Schneider ended up becoming one of UCF's greatest quarterbacks of all time. A good friend of mine to this day, and he used to actually bless my footballs before I would play. So we were always good friends. There was never, I always pulled for him. But when the media starts talking about quarterback controversies and whatnot, we really don't pay too much attention to that. We just try to go out there and play our own game and do the best we can. I don't think that had any impact on me. I ended up separating my shoulder, and Ryan came in and did a phenomenal job. And he ended up, I think he was a redshirt freshman at the time. I was a 5th-year senior, and he came in and had a nice little second half there, and then ended up becoming one of UCF's most prolific passers. I think he beat a lot of Dante's records as far as passing, and I think he played 4 straight seasons there for UCF and just did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, so you referenced obviously the shoulder injury, and then Schneider takes over, but that season culminates. Obviously, Ryan took the bulk of the snaps from then on out. But you referenced it earlier, so being a part of all those games in '99 where we got so close, Obviously, how sweet was it? Was that win versus Alabama that later on that year?
I still think if you YouTube UCF the kick, it'll come up because Alabama was beating us. They were kicking our butt and they were running it down our throats. And all of a sudden they started to pass. And their coach, I think it was DeBose, got fired, I think hours after we beat them, because they stopped running the ball and they started throwing. I think we had an interception return for a touchdown, and we just got the momentum back. And I ended up actually living in Alabama for a few years. And and I'm up here in the panhandle of Florida now, by Destin, Pensacola area. So this is Alabama territory up here. So 20 years later, I'm able to say in just about any situation, because I just run into people that have Alabama shirts on, or hats, and they're roll tide, and they're all this and they're all that. And Alabama obviously is Alabama. And I'm able to say, hey, you know what, we went into Tuscaloosa and we beat you guys in 2000, and Burley made that field goal to win the game. So you can roll tide all you want. All right. But being up here, living up here now, it's a lot of fun to be able to say that to these Alabama fans when they want to run their run their mouths and roll tide this and roll tide that. But anyway, a tremendous game. Team effort. Schneider did a great job in that game, really did. And I think we all took a little piece of the grass from the stadium and kept it kind of as, for memory purposes. And we went up there and we won. And they were having a down year, but still nobody knows, nobody cares. We went up there and we beat Alabama. And the story, we just said that for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. So looking back on it now, how would you describe your whole career at UCF?
At UCF, I had a great time. I met phenomenal players. I think Asante Samuel came in my senior year. He was a DB who ended up, in my opinion, one of the greatest cornerbacks in NFL history, because he was darn good. All right, he was really good. So I got to play with a lot of players, a lot of great coaches. Still great memories to this day. If UCF in South Carolina play, I'm always kind of like, The good thing about having two teams is that if one of them's having a down year, this year I'm a Gamecock, next year I'm a Knight, and depending on who's having the better year. I'm just kidding, but usually I will pull for UCF. As they say, once a Knight, always a Knight. So if South Carolina and UCF are playing, I'm usually pulling for UCF. But I think in UCF they haven't lost a game in 2 years. So tremendous experience. I mean, what they've done with that program since we've left. When I was there, we did not have the on-campus stadium. We played in the Citrus Bowl. We had high school type facilities, and what they've done when O'Leary came in there, what they've done with that stadium and on campus and the indoor facility and all of the amenities that they have on that campus now, it's remarkable, because when I was there, we didn't have anything like that. As you guys remember, because you were there too. So just a great experience at UCF. Wouldn't have changed a thing. I ended up meeting my wife there, having a son. So, as far as everything, I wouldn't have changed my decision, and very happy to be, a UCF Knight.
But catch us up on your life after UCF. Did you stick around in football? Did you do any coaching, or are you doing something completely different now? What are you doing now?
I played a year. I played a little bit in the Canadian Football League. I played a little bit in the Arena Football League. Right now I'm a financial advisor, but I work closely with my brother, and he's started a clothing company called Noel Clothing, which you can find at www.nolcc.com. And it's really unique because it's a brand of fitness wear that specializes in the health, performance, and recovery of athletes. And we're able to achieve this through the clothing by using fabrics such as hemp, organic cotton, and other materials that are known to contain many features that are not found in other fabrics, but are really designed to help the performance and recovery, especially the recovery of athletes. It's hemp-based clothing wear, so and it's Noel Clothing, and I partner with him. We're also financial advisors. We help veterans obtain benefits that they normally would not obtain because the VA has income and asset restrictions on certain things. So we have to rearrange their entire estate, working with attorneys to put the veterans in a position, and we're talking about World War II veterans, Korean War veterans, Vietnam veterans, older veterans, put them in a position to get $2,000 a month when they need assisted living or in-home health care. So that's what I do now. I'm a financial advisor, and I also work closely with my brother with the Noel Clothing Company. And I'm up here in the Panhandle of Florida, Destin area, if you're familiar with that. But no, I never got into coaching. I coach my son. He's 13 years old, and he's playing tight end and defensive end. But as far as actual coaching, no, I never got into coaching.
All right, so we have a tradition around here on the show, Vic. We end every show, every interview, if you will, with our guests with 10 random questions. So these can be 10 questions about sports, music, movies, UCF, whatever kind of comes to our mind. So are you prepared to face these 10 rapid fire random questions?
Not really, but let's do it anyway.
All right. You said this earlier, so maybe I know the answer, but who was the best athlete you ever saw while you were at UCF?
Charles Lee.
Yeah, you said he ran a 4.340. That's crazy.
He was pretty fast. Yeah, he was up there. He took a pass one time I threw against Auburn. I think it was a 5-yard pitch, and he took it like 89 yards or 79 yards, something like that. He went through 11 defenders of Auburn and just took it to the end zone. It was one of the most phenomenal runs I've ever seen. So I have to say Charles Lee.
All right. What was the best bar at UCF when you were there? Because I know me and Adam used to go to a bunch of them. We probably saw you out. So is it the pub, the Liquid Cellar, or the Wing Shack?
I know nothing. What bar? What's the bar? I would say the Liquid Cellar, probably. Yeah.
That place was great. All right. So you mentioned this earlier. So that '99 season, you guys played like a murderer's row of teams. Obviously, we didn't have a conference back then, so it's a lot easier. But current time, there's a lot of chatter going back and forth about UCF and scheduling and so on and so forth. And Danny White, the AD, has taken a stance that he's not a fan of playing 2-for-1 games. So the question to you, Vic, is should UCF schedule 2-for-1 games?
Yes.
And why?
Well, I think they need to do something with their schedule. I don't know exactly what that is. If they need to increase, because the reason why they're not getting ranked where they need to be ranked is, in my opinion, it's because they're not playing the schedule that the other teams are playing. The conference that they're in, they need to get bigger teams in there because they're a big team, okay, but they're not getting the respect that they deserve because they're not playing the schedule that the SEC is playing. So, although they haven't lost a game in 2 years, the schedule isn't really where it needs to be in order to get them where they need to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's a fair take. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. It's just obviously, South Florida, the Cows over there in Tampa, they've adopted a model. We have our model, but it certainly just brought a lot of healthy banter back and forth the last couple of weeks. So I was curious to get some former players' perspectives on how that works.
All right. One of the other guys we talked to a few months ago was Bo Clark, and his dad, Torchy. He's got a book coming out on his dad, Torchy. Did you ever have a class with Torchy while you were at UCF?
I did not. Torchy, I met him. I've spoken with him many, many times. But I know a tremendous UCF Knight, Torchy Clark, and but I don't think I had one of his classes. I can't remember, but I remember speaking with him many, many times. Just a lot of wisdom, a lot of insights on certain things. But no, I never had a class.
So I know in your career you spent some time. Sometimes you weren't on the field and you were the backup, or you were out of the game already. And a lot of offenses, the quarterbacks on the sidelines, they signal in the plays to the quarterback on the field. Have you ever accidentally signaled in the wrong play? And how do you guys remember all those different signals for all the different plays you have?
Well, at UCF, no. One of our coaches, Alan Gooch, was the signaler. So the quarterbacks didn't signal in the plays. Coach Gooch did. But we had to spend a lot of time in the classroom learning those signals after practice, in meetings. Certain days we had to go in there and just, it was just repetition. Coach Cruz was very good at that. So once you pick it up, it's just like learning a language. It becomes second nature. It's like riding a bike. You can just signal it in, you know exactly what it is. It just takes 2 seconds, you know exactly what it is, because it's like learning sign language almost. So very easy once you do it, but it takes a lot of practice over and over, a lot of repetition in order to get to where you need to be in order to make it second nature.
All right, we talked a lot about the 99 Georgia game. We know it as the burglary between the hedges. Now, did you have any sense of redemption when we beat them in 2010 in the Liberty Bowl? Did that make up for it at all for you?
I was happy that we won. It will never make up for it because I've always, to this day, 24-23, and being so close and getting down to the 19-yard line with under a minute left and just being right there to win the game and go home and shock the world. It didn't give me didn't help soothe my feelings or my broken heart, if you will.
All right, so you played quarterback, and so obviously there are some times, unfortunately, where you got hit, you got sacked, maybe one of your linemen got beat, and they give up a hit. And so has a lineman ever apologized to you? So you get just blasted, and a lineman comes over and like puts his hand out to help you up. Has anybody ever apologized to you or said like, "Hey, my bad," or do you even want them to say something to you in that moment?
No, I just want to tell them to get the heck out of here. But no, I'm only kidding. No, I play with a lot of great offensive linemen, and but yes, they do. If they make a mistake and I get nailed, most of the time they'll apologize. Yes.
Okay, so being the starting quarterback of a college team has to be pretty cool. And I'm sure there's some perks that go along with it. How easy was it to talk to the ladies with that opening line right there? Hey, I'm the quarterback. You said you met your wife out there, so I'm sure it worked.
Yeah, I met her after. Yeah, I didn't. You have to be smart about it. You can't go be like, "Hey, I'm the quarterback."
No.
You just have to, there are definitely perks. But Cruzak kept us so busy that I didn't really have a lot of time to go out and socialize during my time there. So I know nothing.
All right, so
we gotta have another conversation.
Yeah, we gotta hit stop real quick and get some details here. All right, last one for me. So, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Invisible.
Oh, well, okay. Why? I've got to know.
Because I could just be invisible and I can do pretty much whatever I wanted.
Fair enough.
If I would pick I would pick to be invisible, and whatever I wanted.
All right, I got one more. We all know Coach K was the strongest guy on the team, but who is the next strongest guy among the players that you played with?
Paige Sessoms in the story.
You think he can beat Coach in an arm wrestling contest?
Could Paige beat Cruz?
Yeah.
Now or back then?
No, back then.
I don't know. Cruzak is a pretty strong guy. I mean, he was in the weight room, 5 a.m, working out, setting the example. But Paige, I think Paige will probably take him. Paige is a strong dude.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Kruzek's son Garrett probably about, I don't know, like 20 shows ago, and he says that coach still gets up every morning and gets in the gym and is still pumping iron. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll have to set that up or not, but Cruz certainly
when I first met Garrett, he was a little boy. He was probably 6 or 7 years old. So it's amazing how fast it goes. You know.
Yeah.
He was a little kid when Coach would bring him around. Yeah, I still think the Pace should probably take him.
All right, we'll see if we can set that up. We'll have to look in the budget and see if we have that in the show budget. But listen, Vic, we appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule and catching up and reminiscing. Again, you know, you were there when we were there, so we always remember your years finally at UCF, and you know, certainly everything you did for the program and all the hard work you put into that 99-2000 season, and sort of where the program has come, as you know, because of guys like you and the sacrifices and what you all put in. So I definitely appreciate your time as a Knight, and I appreciate you for taking some time to join us tonight.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you guys thinking about me and having me on. I wish you the best of luck. Again, once a Knight, always a Knight, and you know, you guys also do a lot for the program, and we certainly appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate your kind words. Thank you very much.
This is UCF Athletic Director Terry Mohajri, and in my spare time, when I'm not on TikTok, I'm listening to Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Go Knights and charge on!
Here on the Sons of UCF, we pride ourselves on finding you some of the best players to ever don the black and gold. And so the guy on the line with us this week only played one season, but he played a pivotal role, I think, in the transition of UCF football. And so we're very happy to bring on Brett Hodges, former quarterback. He played a big role in the 2009 season, which includes a win against Marshall that we'll get to in a second. So Brett, first off, thanks for hopping on tonight and joining us on the Sons of UCF.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Let's start here quickly. So take us back to your summer of 2009. You had just left, or you were leaving Wake Forest, but you had 1 year of eligibility remaining. How did you end up at UCF? How did that marriage come together?
Yeah, that was a lot to happen in a pretty short time frame. So when I decided to leave Wake and graduate, and I think it was, I forget when the graduation was, but it was towards the beginning of the year, and saw the extra year of eligibility, and really honestly wasn't even looking to play football anywhere. So the last season when I was at Wake was pretty tough, just, you know, primarily being a backup quarterback and not seeing the field at all, and times throughout the season that you know, I felt that maybe there were opportunities to see the field didn't happen. And so, you know, kind of looking at my future at Wake for that final season, you know, kind of put a damper on football for me a little bit, just for kind of all the, you know, the hard work that goes in for being a quarterback, especially as a backup. You know, you got to do what the starter's doing, you know, with, you know, small likelihood that you're actually going to play. So when I decided to graduate, that was really just the plan, was to graduate, and graduate a computer science degree, and I wanted to do something along the lines of cybersecurity or you know, IT security in that realm. And so I was looking around, and ended up getting accepted to Purdue and going as I guess, quote unquote regular student. So I wasn't going to go as an athlete, but had the intention to try to walk on the basketball team while I was there. I played basketball quite a bit in high school, and had multiple offers coming out of high school. And so kind of being my number one passion, I was like, you know, let me give this a try for my last year of eligibility. And kind of throughout that time, I started getting phone calls, and one of them was Tim Salem. So he, I guess, got word that I was transferring, and grew up in Orlando, went to high school at Winter Springs. And so, you know, pretty knit community in that sense, and the word got out. And so coming off of that season, I guess the 2008 season for them, he reached out and wanted to see if there was interest in coming to play. And at first I was kind of hesitant because I'd be coming in as essentially the backup again. I'd be coming in as the second string quarterback behind Rob Calabrese. And as I was talking with him about that, it would be on full scholarship again. So when I kind of looked towards the future after football, I saw essentially a free master's degree out of that deal, and said, you know what, for another year, Worst case, if I'm back up again, I can deal with it and get my degree in digital forensics. And then, fast forward to the beginning of the season and, week 1, 2, and finally 3, ended up getting to UCF and playing my last year there. So it worked out pretty nice.
I would say today there's a lot of talk about Power 5 and Group of 5 schools. Obviously, you had some unique experience playing at a quote unquote Power 5 school and then transferring to UCF, which obviously by some is considered a Group of 5 school. In your opinion, is there really an appreciable difference between sort of the quote unquote Power 5 and the Group of 5, just based on the facilities, infrastructure, and sort of the level of play?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I played, I would say yes. My sample pool was Wake Forest, right? So, very small private school in the ACC, had 4,000 kids. So the facilities didn't match up to your Florida States, right, or your Miamis, or whatnot. And so as I was kind of looking at different colleges out of high school, East Carolina, I visited UCF, USF, a bunch of other schools that had better facilities. But when you want to separate them by, quote unquote Power 5 versus Group of 5, I think back then the Power 5 schools definitely had an advantage. I think if you look now, at least some of the social media stuff that I'm seeing for non-P5 schools, it's the amenities, if you want to call it, I think are getting up there, to be quite similar, if not the same, as some of these Power 5 schools.
So when you came over to UCF, they didn't promise you the starting job at all then? You said you came in expecting to be the backup?
Yeah, so when I initially spoke with Coach Salem, and then obviously had a conversation with, took a visit and had a conversation with Coach O'Leary. And when we sat down, he kind of laid out, hey, look, Rob's our starting quarterback. This is what our 2008 season looked like. This is where we want to go. We feel like you can, automatically, without throwing a pass in practice, you'll come in as the number 2. I think mostly just kind of my experience of being in the ACC and also being a 5th-year guy just playing football for a longer period of time. And so that was the plan. And the one thing I was appreciated about Coach O'Leary was he didn't play any politics when it came to stuff. So he was very much, the better player is going to play. And if that's the whole season, if that's a game, whatever it may be, he very much let actions speak for words. And so I felt that when I spoke with him and said, I'm going to come and compete my last year. If things don't work out and I'm back up again, then, so be it. I'll do what I can for the team, for Rob. UCF's a school I grew up my whole life with. My dad pitched there, all my siblings, my mom went to school there. So, just being back was special. And then obviously best case scenario, if I can play well and earn a starting spot, that'd be, would be fantastic.
So that first week against Samford, we weren't moving the ball at all that when Rob was in there. And finally we got things going when you came in and kind of bailed us out. I couldn't believe we were almost going to lose to those guys.
Yeah, it's that was I guess tough first game for me at least. So I got to UCF a little over a month before the season started, and what we ran at Wake Forest, I don't want to call it gimmicky offense, but it was UCF ran under O'Leary, very pro style offense. The lingo was the same, the route concepts were the same, reading coverages was the same. And so coming from Wake, I definitely had a higher learning curve to pick up some of, the playbook as best I could. So when I got the call in the second half, I think it was, maybe into the first, I can't remember. There were definitely some nerves there, and I'm not typically a nervous guy, but it was just kind of, all right, I had a month to figure out this playbook, and now I'm having to come in. I think we might have been losing at the time, whether it's a D1 school or not, still college football, right? And so, I think once I took the first couple snaps, things ended up working themselves out, and could have just played football and, won the game, which would have been very bad if we didn't.
Right. So, Rob, you said obviously your dad pitched at UCF, and most of your family went to UCF. How did we let you out of Orlando? How did we even let you get to Wake Forest? What was your recruitment like out of high school? And was UCF on your radar coming out of high school?
Yeah, no, they were. they were towards the top of the list. He goes, Coach Huxtable was recruiting me at the time, if I remember. And, took my visit and did the camps there, the 7-on-7 that you can bring the high school teams with. And I guess it doesn't count as an official visit, but they kind of get looks at you and whatnot. And just going through the process, I think Kyle Israel was already there, his first or second year at UCF. And I just felt, based on, everything I was being told and what was, what Kyle was doing at the time, that, in so many words, I didn't think that was like a higher priority on UCF's list. And so as I looked at some of the other offers, obviously it was, playing in the ACC is what ultimately did it and made my decision to go to Wake.
All right. Well, Mike mentioned, obviously, you got the nod to come off the bench against Samford. And then it wasn't soon after that you took over really the job full time. One of the early games, though, as you kind of got your feet wet, as you explained a little bit about the learning curve. One of the early games you had was against ECU. That was a tough one for us. You threw 4 INTs that game. Not to bring up a bad moment for you, but as a quarterback, I've always been curious. How do you put that kind of stuff behind you? Right, everyone makes mistakes, and I'm sure you didn't go into that game planning on throwing 4 INTs, but how do you kind of put that stuff behind you and keep moving forward positively when obviously that you're not maybe playing your best in that game?
Sure, and that was a tough one because I think we lost by less than a touchdown, and we 4 picks, and I think we had a fumble loss, so 5 turnovers on offense, and we lost by 5, and kind of had a chance at the end to win it. But just, I guess, being a quarterback, you'd have the mentality that not that you don't care, but you kind of have it happened, move on. And when you watch film and look at like where do those interceptions come from, obviously some were bad throws, some could have been bad reads, some could have just been bad luck of tip balls or hitting off the hand. So when I left that game, obviously it was pretty discouraging, being my one and only final year at UCF to do that. But we still had so many more games left in the season, and so I just took it as kind of a learning experience. I learned a lot that game with the playbook and speeding up my reads and things to look for that came out of that. And so, I think that was a big turning point for me, to kind of just, let me play quarterback, trust that I understand the playbook and see what we can do and get some wins.
Another big game in that early 2009 season was the chance to play Miami at home, which obviously was a big deal for UCF at that point. Getting a quote-unquote top Power 5 type school to come play. Obviously, the score didn't turn out in our favor, but to this day, that game still remains one of the most attended games of a game on campus. Can you recall back to that night, just the atmosphere and the bounce house and playing Miami and kind of how crazy that atmosphere was that time?
Yeah, it was a sweet experience. I think it was an ESPN game too, right?
It was,
so
yeah.
National televised night game, yeah. I mean, there's just something about, playing in front of 45, 50,000, however many people they fit in the stadium that night. That's just really fun to play. And as a player, when you can play night games that are televised, there's just something else about that too that kind of brings an extra level of excitement and anticipation to wanting to play. And I grew up, essentially since I was born, going to UCF games when they're in the Citrus Bowl and going to UCF games when there were, 5,000 people sitting in that entire thing. And so kind of remembering that as a kid and then running out of the tunnel to see, the stadium packed and the lights on and ready to play football is just such an awesome experience.
All right, let's get to a positive game. The Marshall game. We struggled a lot during that game, too. We were down 2 scores late in the fourth quarter. Bruce Miller makes the crazy strip sack. We get the ball back. With about 23 seconds, we're at the 1-yard line. Now, take us through this next play because I don't know. Can you tell us what play was called and what actually happened? Because Rocky Ross was standing out there on the side, and nobody was even within 10 yards of him.
Yeah, so when people ask me this question, I don't know if I've ever given this answer to the media, or it definitely wasn't asked after the game. But if I remember, I think we had 2 tight ends maybe, because they're on the 1 yard line. Kamar Aiken caught that post to the 1 yard line. We had double tight ends. Rocky obviously was on the right side, not covered. We had AJ Guyton on the left, and he was supposed to motion over, and it was kind of like a sprint out right, high low. AJ running a flat, Rocky running the corner out. So when people look at this from, watching on TV and hearing about it, they're kind of yelling, like, Rocky's so wide open. Why aren't you just snapping the ball now? Like, why are you waiting? Why are you looking around? What Marshall did that game is they ran a we call it diamond, but it's like a 3-3-5 defense that can get really tricky with disguising coverages or knowing like where players are rushing from or dropping. And so I knew I had a 2-person route. I didn't know if the safety on that side was just disguising coverage, and that right before the snap was gonna play his half of the field. And so what I didn't want to do was not bring in the motion, snap it, have Rocky covered, and then we're kind of dead, right? So what I tried to do was kind of just focus all my attention on the left side of the field when I was calling the snap count and motioning AJ over. And so right on the snap, I knew who was the only guy who could make a play. And so eyes went straight to him. And honestly, Rocky and AJ both were wide open at the time. And so just gave him a nice little ball out there for the touchdown that ended up winning it.
I was going to say, I thought maybe that was just improv, and then O'Leary still would have been mad at you for not running what he called.
Yeah. Yes, definitely some of that too throughout the season. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where, it's in hindsight, obviously if it's a negative outcome, it's what the hell are you doing? If it works out, it's great. But I just felt at the time and throughout the game with what they were doing, I wanted 2 options, especially with no timeouts and as little left, time that was on the clock. So wanted to get him over there and end up working out nice.
The next week we went to go play Texas, and you sat out, and a couple other starters sat out. What was that like in the locker room? What was the talk about going into that game?
We were beat up, man. I know I was beat up specifically for Marshall. So if you go back to the Sanford game when I played, there was a play in the second half. I threw a pass to Kamar and took a helmet to the left rib cage and cracked a couple ribs. And so kind of throughout the season, I was playing with some banged up ribs and this little flak jacket they made for me. And so as many hits I took in the Marshall game, my body was just kind of breaking down. And I did everything I could that week going into Texas to try to play, to try to, throw, and couldn't do any of it at all. And got to Thursday's practice, which is typically like a walkthrough, to kind of give it the best full go I could, and tried to lobby O'Leary to let me play. But, I guess running some of the offensive plays and throwing for what I could wasn't up to par for him. And so he decided to sit me out. And then I forget what Brent had, but Brent had a pretty legitimate injury too. I know there was talk during that week of him kind of purposely sitting us to rest for conference play in Houston the next week. But we were very much injured. It was a bummer for me too, because I definitely wanted to play at Texas. When I coming out of high school, I was doing the Elite 11 stuff with Colt McCoy. And so, just kind of going back there and playing against them in that environment would have been pretty cool. So, yes, I guess we were pretty hurt.
Yeah, I remember there was a big controversy because you guys were sitting out and everybody was talking about maybe we're just giving that game away and then looking forward to the rest of the season. Because Texas, I think, was number 2 or something at the time.
Yeah, they were number 2. I think they won the national championship that year too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think what made it worse though was O'Leary dressing us. And so if I had to make the decision that if I wasn't going to play, if I wasn't fit to play, then I would rather not dress. And so I think people saw us in the sideline on helmets and shoulder pads, and kind of made the assumption that we were being held out for quote unquote more important games.
All right. Well, the next week was an important game. The game at Houston, the first time we ever beat a ranked team. You had a pretty good day that day. Completed 84% of your passes, and the big play I remember was the touchdown to McDuffie, right down the middle. What were your favorite moments from that game?
Well, one, we won. I think it was especially neat for me, like I said, growing up with UCF, and I think we were 0-20 something and playing ranked opponents. And so being the quarterback, at the school I kind of grew up with my whole life, to get the first ranked win, first win against the ranked team was really special and was really cool to kind of have for my short period there. But I think the biggest thing I can remember is the play to Quincy McDuffie. And so what's kind of neat about that play is, I don't know if it was the quarter before, it was the exact same play that I ended up throwing a pick on, that Quincy was running down the middle, I think overset a little bit to the safety and threw an interception. So we actually went back to that exact same play, and I knew it was going to be there, and really just trusted myself and Quincy as a freshman to go up and get it. And so, you look at it on TV. I looked at it on film after the fact, and I saw the three guys there as I threw. I don't know if I would do that again, but I'd say that's probably the biggest moment I think of that game. It really took us to, we might win. Like we're winning the game now. We got to hold on to, hey, like we're really going to win this game. We're putting points on the board. Our defense is so great. They're stopping, Case Keenum and that high-powered offense at the time. So I think it really gave us a lot of confidence.
So UCF finished out that season with an unfortunate bowl loss in the St. Petersburg Bowl. Ended 8-5 in that year. I think a lot of people look back on that 2009 season, Brett, and really kind of think it was a bridge into the 2010s, if you will, where UCF reeled off 5 winning seasons out of the next 6 years. How about you? How do you look back on that 2009 season? The only season you played at UCF. What are your memories, and how would you describe that season when you look back on it now?
Yeah, I mean that out of all my football I've played, the 4 years at Wake Forest and the one there, I mean UCF's the 1 year that I look back on the most, and playing's a big part of that, but also just kind of what UCF means to my family and whatnot. And so 2009 I was pretty proud personally of being able to kind of spin up learning the offense in a pretty quick fashion, and then getting results in the field, which worked out pretty nice. And I was especially proud of the hard work I put into that. I mean, I look back at it and there's some regrets. Do we lose to Southern Miss? Probably shouldn't have. East Carolina, again, probably shouldn't have. If you want to say we lose to Miami and Texas, then that's, we're 10-2, right? In territory that UCF hasn't seen. So like overall, I think the record is what it is, but I do agree that I feel like it was kind of a nice jump board to, propel UCF to more consistent season by season basis of successes. And I do credit, I guess, the late Coach Taff for everything he did for me, but then also I think kind of behind the scenes stuff he did for the team that many people may not recognize just from being an offensive coordinator and whatnot. So, traditionally, I feel like UCF was a very run heavy, methodical, run first team. Coach Taff got there, and I felt like we slowly started getting to more of a balanced NFL style type offense. And you insert Jeff Godfrey and you insert Blake and some other guys, and now we're running an offense that's fun for the fans to watch. There's more scoring and whatnot. And so does that play a part in where we got to running this high powered offense with Frost and Heupel and whatnot? Maybe not, but I look back at it. It definitely holds a special place in my heart. And if I did my little part of my 1 year there, wish I had more to help future successes in UCF, then great.
All right, we've had a bunch of ex-quarterbacks on that played under O'Leary, and they all had at least one story where he just tore them apart for something, whether it was something in the game or in practice. Do you have a moment where he just laid into you for something?
Just one moment?
The best one. Or give us a couple.
Oh, man. I mean, he's called me names and said things to me after throwing picks that I probably don't want to repeat. I mean, one story.
Well, how did he keep you in there after that third and fourth interception against East Carolina?
Well, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about. So he would always threaten me and players that if they weren't going to do something good or they're not doing what they're supposed to, that they would just be yanked immediately. So at ECU, I remember the second interception. The first one he wasn't happy, but he was like, whatever. The second one, he started getting pretty pissed off, and he came up to me and he said, "Done. Like, you're done. No more interceptions. You throw another interception, you're out of the game. You're not playing anymore." And so I remember throwing I don't even want to tell these stories, throwing the third interception of that game, and running to the sideline and like, well, I'm done. Like, I'm done for the day, and just waiting for him to come over and just cuss me out and yank me. And so I remember just standing on the sideline, kind of just not hiding behind anybody, but definitely kind of giving him the side eye, like, is he coming over here to yank me? Is he going to come cuss me out? And just, kind of walking down the sideline in parallel with him, just waiting for him to yank me. And, as it was, he kind of let me ride with it. And then got to the fourth interception, and for sure was expecting the same thing, but instead I just got a whole bunch of, getting cussed out and calling a lot of other names. But that's, I don't know. I mean, other than getting just, yelled at a lot and threatened, that's probably one of the better ones I can think of.
Have you had a chance to keep up with the team? You follow the team now, I'm sure, right? Your family's a diehard UCF fan, so you keeping up with the guys. What do you think about Dylan Gabriel and the way he's played this year?
I'm pretty happy with what I've seen. I think he's kind of put in a tricky situation just from the last 2 years and the successes that we've had, that, the UCF fan base expects perfection. And I think, we've been spoiled with McKenzie and different quarterbacks before, and don't really realize that he's a true freshman, right? He wasn't in high school very long ago. And so he's going to make mistakes, right? It's just unfortunate that some of the mistakes that were made this year were, could argue, could have cost some of the games and wins and losses and whatnot. But I'm happy with what I've seen from him. I think he has a really bright future. It seems like he's learning week to week. His readers seem to get better. It seems to be like he's progressing more on his routes, whereas kind of the beginning of the year, he picked a person and threw it, or receiving it 50 yards downfield. But seeing him run these last few games and some of the read option and just quarterback scrambles, I think is going to help him out tremendously from a throwing perspective. So I think UCF's in good hands with Dylan.
You mentioned obviously you played in a pro style offense, Brett. Would you have liked to have played in an offense like the one Heupel runs, where you're moving so fast at tempo and you're throwing a bunch of go routes as a quarterback? Is that an offense you would have wanted to play in?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I would be recruited to play in that kind of offense. I don't know if I'm that good of an athlete at the time, but yeah, I mean, I think there's an element of when you're a quarterback, not thinking is a good thing, and when you put all the preparation in before the week, it's kind of ingrained into your head on what to do. When you play such a fast tempo offense, you can't think about the bad pass you threw, or the bad read you had, or the sack you took. It's just on to the next play. And I think there's a lot of benefits to, kind of letting the player use their skill set and just use their natural ability to make plays and not be prohibited by, too much thinking or complex thinking of the playbook. So, I would absolutely have loved to do that. Would I have been a good fit for that? I'm not sure about that, but guess we'd never know.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time. You've been really gracious with it. So we end every interview with former players on 10 random questions. So 10 random sort of rapid fire questions. Could be about anything from music, movies, sports, anything at all. So are you prepared? Are you ready to face 10 random rapid fire questions?
I don't know. Do I have a choice?
Probably not.
You can hang up right now.
Yeah, you can hang up, but you're not going to miss this. This is the best part. This is the best part. Yeah, this is the best part of the conversation. So I'll start with this one. It's an easy one for you. So obviously you went to Wake Forest, and then obviously you came to UCF. Who would win in a fight between the Demon Deacon mascot and Nitro?
Oh, UCF easily.
Right. See, you're already on a roll.
All right, 1-0.
All right, what's the best Christmas movie of all time?
The best Christmas movie of all time?
What's your favorite?
Christmas movie.
The Christmas Story?
Christmas Story.
It's good, but the correct answer is Die Hard.
All right. I've always wanted to know this question. So, and after the games, we see this stuff all the time. Coaches in the locker room, and they're handing out game balls to the players, right? Do you guys actually get to keep the ball? Do you actually get a ball to take home, or is it just a symbolic game ball?
No, you get to keep it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we've I guess I don't know who's listening to this, but yeah, we've taken jerseys and helmets and a lot of other things. There's plenty of footballs to go around, so yeah, very much get to keep it.
Nice. Okay. Great.
All right, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Fly.
That's a good one. Well, speaking of flying, so you mentioned earlier, obviously you were banged up in the Texas game. Is there still a body part of yours that hurts today from playing football?
Yeah, my shoulder. Separated my shoulder when I was at Wake. So when the weather gets bad and something with the air density gets all jacked up, my shoulder hurts.
All right. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Favorite vacation spot? Probably have to go with Scottsdale. Great golf.
Yeah, what are you shooting?
I'm a 5 index.
It's not bad.
I don't even know what index means. Is that like a handicap?
That's pretty good.
5 handicap.
Yeah.
All right, so you're pretty good.
All right, you mentioned earlier you're a basketball fan, so answer this for me. Who is the best NBA team in Los Angeles right now, the Lakers or the Clippers?
Lakers.
Okay. They're on a roll right now. They're actually winning against Indiana as we speak.
All
No
right,
load management with the Lakers.
let's keep it in the basketball thing. Were you ever able to dunk? Can you dunk? And can you still dunk to this day, or no?
No, I cannot still dunk. I think I've dunked maybe 3 times in my life, 0 times in a game.
All right, so you were more of a 3-point shooter?
Yeah, I was like a shooting guard.
All right, earlier this season, actually probably over the summer, we had a debate on our show about who was the best transfer of all time at UCF. Our colleague Trace Trelka, who works on the Nightline Sports Network, says it begins and ends with Brett Hodges, that you are the best transfer ever in UCF history. Do you agree with Trace?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect.
All right. When you put on your shoes in the morning, do you put them on sock, shoe, or do you put on sock, shoe?
Sock, shoe.
That's the right
Does
answer.
anybody do it the other way?
No, that's the right answer. I'm not sure what are the psychopaths.
I put on my sock and then a shoe.
Say
and then
psychopaths.
The other foot, sock and a shoe. I didn't even realize I did it until I asked this question one time, and then I checked myself.
I mean, sadly, Brett, he's also a UCF alum like you and I, so we're saddled with that and the devaluation of our degree. But nonetheless, we appreciate Mike for what he's done, and obviously we appreciate you for taking some time to join us tonight. Again, you only played one season, but I think for the diehard fans, that 2009 season is certainly a memorable one. Obviously, Marshall coming up here in the bowl game, certainly good to reminisce about the 2009 game and the come from behind win. We'll get you out here in this one. How do you think UCF will do Monday in the Gasparilla Bowl against Marshall? Are you expecting a win?
Yeah, they're going to win. What's the spread, 17?
Yeah, it opened at 17. I think it's moving down a little bit, but 17 is pretty much the spread.
I'm going to say 24. Say win by 24.
I like the way you think, Brett.
Easy money.
Easy money from Brett Hodges, man. Again, we appreciate you for hopping on, and and hopefully we'll get a chance to maybe catch up with you again down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it again for you guys having me on.